have a stubborn father and two hard-headed brothers. To me, they're home, no matter where they live.
Since I'm in town, I might as well tell Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Axe, and Mr. Morgan to come to Virginia City.
All right, Ducky.
What was that again?
Oh, I said we better not be late. Hop Singh is serving stuffed duck for dinner.
Yeah. You water these horses and meet me at the bank.
That's one way out.
What did you say?
I say you're right. They'll have to go all out.
Let's get that broke.
Well, that's a long, sad story. Now, the point is, Pa, can you loan us 25?
You and your education.
Education is progress. Now, what have you got against it?
I don't have anything against education. As long as it doesn't interfere with your thinking. All right. Let's get back as soon as you can.
Thanks, Pa. Well, it's almost worth the headache to hear you admit that you're wrong for once.
Monsieur Adam, would you do me the honor?
It's your funeral. Ballade in honor of my gracious host, the Lord of the Ponderosa. France had her Gilles de Retz, Italy her Cagliostro. Cleopatra trained vipers as her pets, and the Borgias' banquets saw hundreds fall. But the Lord of the Ponderosa is master of them all. Bluebeard had a surplus of wives. Henry VIII had far too many lovely ladies, all who laid down their lives, and others there were who heeded the butcher's call. But the Lord of the Ponderosa is master of them all. Infamous Pharaoh.
All right. That's enough. I've heard enough.
Well, you know, Pa, when you considered it simply as poetry, it really isn't too bad.
Bad. I told you all that reading would affect your mind. Sorry about Sue Ellen.
Just don't understand it, Pa. Why would anybody want to kill her? All the men she knew never meant anything to her. Not a thing.
I'm sure they didn't, son.
I think the thing she wanted most was to belong somewhere. She never loved me. I knew that. I think she just liked the idea of being married to a Cartwright. You know, it's funny, Pa. I don't think she even knew what love meant.
He was dragging a dead man, boy.
He's been through some kind of hell.
I put down roots on our ranch, Ponderosa. My father's there, my two brothers. Now look at it this way. What would Bryant do if, say, come dawn, we simply went ahead and hung Farmer Perkins?
Regardless of what Sam Bryant said he'd do to our pa.
Regardless.
Now, what would you do if you were wrong, Adam? Would you go out to my father's grave and say, "I'm sorry, Pa, I made a big mistake"?
Joe, he's my father, too. Excuse me a minute, Judge. Joe, would you check the stock, please?
Yeah, sure thing, Adam.
With all due respect, sir, I think you're overstepping a bit.
I just can't stand by and watch young men take the wrong path.
I know, but I don't think you have to worry about my brother.
There are demons in every man that have to be controlled. And those people feed on that.
You must listen to my husband, Adam. He knows about those things.
Well, excuse me, but we're all going to be living kind of close together for the next few days, so I think we might get along better if you could sort of take the Cartwrights as you find them.
If you insist.
I'm afraid I do. Why don't you go on in and I'll feed him and bed him down.
Now, wait a minute, Adam. You feed him and I'll bed him down, then we'll both go in and talk to Paul.
Come on. You know, you're beginning to act just like another brother of mine.
Oh, Adam, it ain't that. That Brian's just a... Well, I sure do hate to face Paul alone, that's all.
Why?
Oh, hello.
What's wrong?
Nothing.
Well?
We bought a horse.
Adam. Little Joe's gonna be all right. Don't you worry. You ain't got nothing to blame yourself for.
I hope so.
Those last few minutes, it was just like we always knew him.
Well, he was with a friend then, wasn't he? He didn't die a stranger.
You are an honorable man.
There are worse things to be. You can unload my buckboard. Now, if you don't want the trade of the Ponderosa, there are 2 other stores in town. Be glad to get it.
No, Adam, that ain't fair. I've supplied
Now,
the
don't
Ponderosa.
talk fair to me, Will. I just heard you threaten to starve a man out. Now, you name it. Either I buy what I want or I don't buy anything.
No, don't.
All right, honey, it's me, it's Adam.
Oh, Adam.
Where's Jason? Was Esketh here?
Yes. He hit me. And he slapped me. And he wanted me to tell.
Did he tell you who he really is?
Yes. And he said terrible things about Jason.
Where is Jason? Where is he? Where is he?
The silver Corazon mine. I'm supposed to meet him there. He gave me a little trail map. He took it. It's gone. He took it. He took the map. He'll kill Jason.
Calm down! Now listen, I'll send somebody to look after you. Now don't go away, you stay right here. Okay.
You went away for a while. You just got back.
Oh. I'm sliding away, Adam. I'm cold. Hang on to me, Adam. Where am I going?
To Delphi. She's waiting for you. I got your hand, boy.
Anna?
I am not biased. I am not vindictive, nor unreasonable. And my name is not Robert Jolly. And my father has not been accused, arrested, tried, convicted, and hanged in 3 days for murder. Though maybe that's just through the grace of God. And I haven't been forced to chase a judge all over the territory to ask him questions, which I had a right to ask.
How dare you?
I dare, sir, because I've lived in this territory most of my life. I have part of its future, and I want to be proud of it. So don't deny me that. No.
dirty yellowback.
Nope.
Sneaking, thieving, lying coward.
No.
Don't deceive me. Oh, never leave me. How could you use a poor maiden so?
Adam Cartwright, I knew it was you. No one but you could sing with such deep, tender feeling.
Does matter then what people think of you, hmm?
We are what we are, Signor. But see, it does matter. No one wants to be alone, Signor.
All right. I'll go over and talk to him for a few minutes and give you a chance to get upstairs and change.
Grazie, Signor. I regret my rudeness to you. I will try to apply the lesson you have tried to taught me.
Well, have you got a new hobby, Adam?
No, but I'm getting to be a pretty good expert at dressing dolls. It's the second time Sue dropped it down the well.
How are the children doing, Adam?
Oh, pretty good. After that first day, after Peggy got them calmed down, and after we got Sue this doll and Kenny an animal to play with. I'll get Pa. Goodness, you look pretty. Now, here we go. Now, may I escort you to the wagon?
Yes.
You just stay here and I'll go take a look, all right?
Adam, my pa, he isn't bad, is he?
Nah, Jody, he might have done a bad thing, but he's not bad.
Adam, are you sure you didn't just let me win that race?
Oh, you won it fair and square.
He is fast.
Well, sure, that's what I was telling you.
Will my daddy be surprised when he sees him?
Sure will. Where is your daddy?
He's on a trip.
He's been gone a long time, hasn't he?
It's pretty, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is.
Now it'll die.
No, just go away and come back again next spring.
No, they never come back.
Well, there's lots of others to take their place.
But it won't be the same.
You're right, Peggy. You know, it's kind of like that with people, too.
Maybe somewhere there's someone waiting there with a smile. And maybe there'll be someplace I can stop and rest a while. 'Cause maybe you weren't meant to be just a rolling stone. And there's a road to travel on that leads you back to home. Oh, but I'll keep traveling on, keep a-looking at the dawn, till I can lay this lonesome body down. And when that day has come, I never more will roam, and every road I see will lead me home. Well, when that day has come, I never more will roam, and every road I see will lead me home. Yeah.
Carrie said, I remember reading somewhere that Pernell had been asked to come back to the show during the 14th season, but I don't know how true that is. Can anyone confirm this story? Had you ever heard that, Jean? Andy, had you ever heard anything like that? I'm guessing Pernell would have probably said no. I don't. Wouldn't you?
I suspect so. I don't see what it would have done in one way or another. And by that time, well, he was asking for a little bit more money than they probably wanted to shell out.
Does bring up an interesting thought. If he had returned to the 14th season, what would that have done? It probably would have turned a lot of things topsy-turvy, I'm sure.
Well, maybe it would have ended up with a 15th season.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a good possibility, sure.
Would have been interesting.
I think if he were to have returned, it would have been on a limited sort of a trial basis. And I think as Gene astutely pointed out, it would have had to involve a significant amount of coin.
A dump truck full of money in his front yard.
Yeah. But, you know, I remember, maybe not quite that much, but I think I apologize for repeating this, but maybe it's new to some people. Rose Dortort, wife of David Dortort, the show's creator, producer, executive producer, said in sort of an offhanded remark, Pernell just didn't want to have anything to do with Bonanza. And David said, no, that's not it at all. He wants money. He wants more money. And Richard Stone, who was his attorney for many years since he got him his first divorce in 1959, he said to me, and I'm trying to remember the exact quote, the exact quote. He said, Bonanza affected Pernell's psyche. And he said, perhaps not in the same conversation, Pernell's antipathy towards Bonanza can definitely be overcome with money. And I think that was sort of a succinct way of putting it.
He was rather irritated, to put it very mildly, that while he didn't get more money, everybody else did. After he left the show, the re-signing involved a whole lot more. And if I remember correctly, a part of the ownership, or however you want to phrase it, you know better than I do, Andy, of the show, that they all had like a stock in it. And that would have been something that might have kept Pernell had they mentioned that would be coming. And then again, maybe it wouldn't have come if there were 4, but with 3, we can come up with more. I don't know.
Well, you know, what I'm about to say is controversial, to say the least, because those who claim to know Pernell Roberts would say that that's not something he ever would have agreed to, that money was not important to him, and he didn't do what he did for money. But, you know, we all need money to live, and we all need to be practical. And I had a conversation with Fenton Coe, who was the head of production for NBC on the West Coast. And he remembered vividly having a conversation with Pernell not too long before he left the show. And it might have been on the set of Dead and Gone, or it might have been before that. But he basically wanted to talk to Pernell personally and say words to the effect, I'm sorry you're leaving, Pernell, and I wish there was something I could do. Is there anything I could do to get you to change your mind? And according to Fenton Coe, Pernell said, well, yes, you can give me the same increase in salary that the other guys are getting going forward. And Fenton said, absolutely, I could do that. Guarantee that you will get the same as all the others as you have been getting all along. And then Pernell added, and something else. Well, what's that, Pernell? I would like retroactively to have the increase in salary that the other 3 guys have gotten during this last year. And Fenton said, no, I can't do that, because those 3 got a boost in their 6-year salary as a reward for agreeing to sign for a 7th and subsequent years. And you had that opportunity to do that at that time, and you did not. So it would not be fair to the other guys to have you now making the same thing this year that they are making. But I will be able to give you the same amount that they get going forward. And Pernell said, no, that's not acceptable. And according to Fenton, that was an impasse that they couldn't overcome.
he had a number of expenses that a lot of people really weren't clued into. Not the least of which is he paid for his parents' new house and for their well-being for the rest of their lives. So it was not like somebody already I saw in the chat. Yeah, there were some ex-wives that were interested in possibly being able to live the way they would like to, and that's reasonable. At that point, he was still married to Judith, and I can't speak to all of the particulars as far as finances go because I worked really hard not to put my nose into that part of business because it wasn't part of a friendship. It was, but he did make certain comments, and yeah, he had Richard Stone go after a few things because people ripped him off left and right, and he just got damn sick of it. And I can see what he's talking about. I could see it then. And but what are you gonna say? When he took the show Trapper John, because a lot of people said, well, he's not doing a series because he doesn't like doing series television. And yeah, that's part of it. He liked the variety. However, he also knew that there's going to get to be a time where he may not be enough of a commodity to get the jobs that he needed in order to support a couple of women, as well as just survive. And he was living in a little shack. He had lived in that shack for years and wanted to move elsewhere where maybe he could actually close doors and windows and nobody would break into them like they all. His house was robbed so many times, it's not even funny. Wow. So one of them, though, he got to know the kid that robbed him, who's a drug addict, and Pernell paid and helped him get his life turned around. Now, that doesn't usually happen, but he also didn't make that public. I know it because we talked about it. And he decided at one point, this is not long after I moved to California, he decided that what he wanted, we had a long conversation with Butch about it. He says, I'm now looking for a series that can put me in a position where when I retire, I really can retire, that I don't, it'll hold me for the rest of my life and whatever obligations I have. And Trapper John came along and it was a perfect fit for him. He didn't expect it to last as long as it did, but he didn't mind being there. It was a good vehicle for him. And as he often put it, I make more money now than I even believed in my life that I could. And a lot of that money went to help a lot of people that no one will ever know about because it was all done quietly.
Patino, what did you want to contribute?
I just love the variety of clips that we got to watch. And Alex Sharp's scripts are so brilliant. And I thought Pernell just took such advantage of them with the sarcasm and the muttered lines that, makes Ben's head turn around. I'm like, what? What was that? Getting caught like a little kid in the barn with the thoroughbred. What's my train of thought? I like that Adam just disappeared and we never knew what really happened to him because that's such a great avenue for new adventures through fan fiction. He just, we have snippets from later episodes. Oh, he was, doing something architecture wise, or he was, sailing for some reason, or in Europe. But he can do all these things or just be away on business in fan fiction and be written into later episode stories. So while it would be satisfying to have a story wrapped up, it's great that it wasn't.
They left it so that he could come back at any point that he wanted to. That was part of, I think, the whole plan of the powers that be, not necessarily him.
And a great little story tidbit. My parents' neighbor is my age, so this happened when we were in our late 40s. I had gone by my parents' house. They were out of town to check on things, and their neighbor had a friend over. I get out of my car and he's like, "Hey, I want to introduce you to my friend." And he's just laughing hysterically. I'm like, Okay. If you're trying to set me up, I don't know how this is going to go. But he's trying to introduce me and he can't say his friend's name. And his friend is like turning this red and standing there awkwardly. And finally, his friend stuck out his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Pernell." And I said, "Oh, I bet I know who you were named for." And he said, "Yeah, my mom had a big crush on Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. and Pernell Roberts. So my name's Ephraim Pernell." And he said high school was hell.
The poor guy.
A question was brought up, are there any bad Adam episodes? Of course, people mentioned the Laura episodes, but is there anybody want to comment on what they feel is a bad Adam episode? Carol, did you want to go or you just got a question?
No, I wanted to comment about what Jean had said.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Because my heart goes right there. When you said the personal information about Pernell helping the person with the addictive problem, and that he helped him rather than, my heart went straight to, does that not sound like a Cartwright thing to do? That's totally what they would have done. So there's a lot of the real life guys in those characters if that's what he did. I just wanted to mention that because that went straight to my heart, Jean.
But fortunately, a lot of Pernell's friends weren't like a lot of Adam's friends who seemed to be going bad throughout his. The poor man had no idea how to choose a friend. My goodness sakes, half of them tried to kill him, and the others got killed themselves.
And that sounds like a Cartwright thing too, doesn't it?
It does, but I think that Pernell did a much better job of selecting the people he was going to hang out with.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the clips in that the one with Marriott, just he's trying to calm her down and then he's going to go after Jason, and he in all that rush he's in a hurry to get there and save Jason. And yet he takes that one split second moment to just barely touch her cheek in reassurance that, she's safe and he's going to take care of Jason as well in that. And then just watching him with the kids, all of them. And he is just so patient, so good with them. And when you watch them like that back to back with Peggy and Jody and little Sue and a few others that he might interact with, if you watch them back to back, he really adjusts to each child, where they're coming from, what their background is. And he is, especially with Peggy, he knows she knows that her father's dead, but trying to get her in her little 7-year-old mind to work that around and deal with it, or at least get to the point where he can help her deal with it. But it's just watching him morph and change according to each child and what their needs are. And man, he would have made a great dad. They all would, but it would have just been great, to see that. But like Patina said, we have fan fiction. And I think that's one reason some of us prefer to write families, get them married or let them have kids, but in a meaningful way based on how we saw them, each of the characters react to the women on the show, to their love interest, and also to the kids based on that. So, but anyway, my comments.
When they introduced Laura, Kathy Brown, to the whole program, that was when he had the opportunity to leave, and they had it set up so that she was going to marry him, and then he was going to ride off in the sunset, or she was going to marry Will, and Adam would stick around another year, and that was a very stressful period of time for him because he had to make some heavy decisions, and I think I already mentioned that he had some obligations, and he has always, when he has an obligation, he always follows through.
Thank you, Robin. Lynn?
Well, you were asking about Adam episodes that we don't like. I did say yesterday about My Brother's Keeper, which is not a favourite of mine in part. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. But I think the one that I dislike Adam the most in, which sounds awful because I do love Adam, so I don't like to say is the gamble. When he just sits there when they're on trial for murder, and he just sits there slumped down in his chair looking like oh, this is boring. When's this all going to be over? And that's one episode where I just think we needed more from him. He does some good scenes in the jail when they're talking about Joe, when Joe's gone off to try and bring help. There's some lovely scenes then, but that scene in the courtroom always rankles with me. I just think, well, you should feel a little bit. I mean, the others all go, oh, when they actually get told that they're going to be hung, and he just sort of slumps down in the chair like, oh, okay, just sticks with me. But but I mean, most of the time I just love Adam, and I just missed him so much when he left, because the three brothers, the way they bounced off each other, and Adam's sarcasm, you just love it, the way he'd just stand there and watch the other two fall over themselves to, trying to get out of trouble. He just made it. So I missed him a lot when he left. But, talking about ones we didn't like, that's the scene I really don't like in The Gamble.
Did Michael Landon write The Gamble?
Yes. Yes.
I always sort of felt like that was
I thought that was one of the problems.
Mary Sue script a little bit.
Well, yeah, but
everybody else talks about him, and he's the great, and he saves everybody.
Yeah, I got the feeling that
I like Michael Landon, don't get me wrong, but I always felt like that one was a bit Mary Sue-ish for him.
Maybe a thorn in Pernell's side on that one.
Yeah,
Joe gets the glory, and Adam is left in the shadows back there. He says, "Okay, I'm just going to sit here."
Yeah, I got the feeling, because it was something about they didn't have a script or something, and then Mike had written something really quickly over the weekend, and then they were suddenly called back into work when they didn't think they were going to. It was all that, and that's what I've heard. I mean, obviously, I wasn't there. I don't know. But I just got the feeling that he was like, oh, we have to, he really looked, as I say, hardly reacting like somebody who has just been condemned to hang. He just seemed to sort of be saying, well, when's this lot going to be over? And I just thought that was a shame. That was that,
I concur, Lynn.
I agree. That was kind of unprofessional for him, because he was such a professional actor and committed, but there was something going on there.
There definitely was.
Yeah, for that.
Something behind the scenes we may never know, as I was saying, Andy. Andy?
What does Mary Sue-ish mean?
Well, it depends when you. Dee, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, Mary Sue is a term that's been coined in fandom, where the author, most fanfic writers are women, not all, but some, or most, that insert themselves into a story where she's a combination of, as a female character, but a combination of Mother Teresa and Wonder Woman, and just the best thing, and it can do nothing wrong, and is the hero, and can fix everything.
So in Ginger's,
that's a Mary story, but
so
it
in
applies to
Ginger's
female
use,
characters.
in Ginger's use, she is saying that Michael Landon wrote or co-wrote a script that had Little Joe performing as the quintessential Mary Sue.
In other words, he was the hero, but then when anybody talked about him, it was all about Little Joe and how wonderful Little Joe is, and everything was Little Joe, all about Little Joe. But
well, and they were worried about him too, about what's
they're worried about Little Joe. They're wringing their hands about Little Joe.
I wanted to just echo a little bit about Lynn's comments, which I agree with, and it sounds like many of us are in agreement. And it's the only example that I can recall of Pernell Roberts looking like he was not acting. I mean, I guess the goal of acting is you don't want to look like you're acting, you want to look natural. But besides that, Pernell was always revving up on all 8 cylinders and giving 100% or more, to my eyes, in every single episode of the first year and the second year and the third year, with this one glaring exception. And fourth year and fifth year, depending on the quality of the script and the amount of work he had to do, I think you could see him expressing his sentiments subtly. He would do this a lot, which I don't think he ever did in the first 3 years, but in the fourth year, the fifth year, he did that a lot. And the sixth year, he seemed to sort of settle down. Maybe he was resigned to his fate and he saw the handwriting on the wall, or maybe the quality of the scripts overall were better. I don't know, but I just see sort of the fourth and fifth year as the nadir for him. But as far as the evolution, very, very quickly, of the gamble, I think it's a bit of malarkey that the company was about to shut down because they didn't have a script. I just find that incredulous that someone working for a David Dortort organization would reach the point where they didn't have a script for next week. So I suspect that that's Michael Landon telling the story to make Michael Landon look good in the story. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's what good storytellers do. But I just think the truth is a little more realistic. And
I thought that was when there was a writer's strike, and so they didn't have a script because there was a writer's strike going on.
Well,
so Michael was a scab.
I guess that's possible, but I don't recall there being a writer's strike or the threat of a writer's strike at that particular time period. But that's a good point, and I really should look that up, because that's easily fact checked. I will do that. Thank you. But
We'll do that and report back to us.
yes, I will. But Frank Cleaver gets the credit as teleplay writer and story by Michael Landon and Frank Cleaver. Frank Cleaver was the story editor at the time. He was sort of David's right-hand man, and not perhaps as gifted, as inspirational, as influential as subsequent story editors like Tommy Thompson and Denny Petitclerc and John Hawkins, but very capable. I think Frank Cleaver wrote the Flapjack Contest, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not 100% sure now. But so there were a lot of hands in that gamble story. And again, according to David Dortort, it was in very rough shape when Michael handed in his outline. He was very critical. He said there were spelling errors, there were grammatical errors, and maybe David was being a little too harsh in retrospect. But I think that the script probably could have been polished a bit. I know Bob Miles was dissatisfied. Bob Miles was the stunt coordinator, and there's a scene where little Joe crashes through a pane glass window, a candy pane glass window, and leaps onto a horse and rides off. I'm sure you'll remember that. And he takes somebody sitting on a horse and he shoves him off. And it's actually Bob Miles, I guess, who's doing the ride away. And I point out to Bob, next to the horse, which had a rider on it, and little Joe shoves the rider off and rides off, there is at least one, and maybe you people can help me out, at least 2 riderless horses next to the horse with the rider on it. So why didn't he just take one of the horses that didn't have a rider on it? So I said that to Bob, and he said, I can't believe I let that happen. Are you sure? I said, yeah. He said, wow, that makes me look bad. Sorry. But yeah, The Gamble is a fun show to watch, but it has problems, to be sure.
When was it filmed? What year?
It was during the third year, 1961, towards the end of the production schedule. So my guess would be late December, probably early January 1961.
Okay. The writer's strike was in January to June of 1960.
No, definitely would not have overlap.
Interesting backstory, but not all backstories are true.
Yes. We can't let the truth get in the way of telling a good story.
Can't believe everything on the internet, Gene. Carol?
Well, my comment is that I'm far less critical of that because I think it was Michael's first try, but that's not what I get out of that. all of those other things. I just ignore stuff like that. What I got out of that episode is, and if Michael wrote this particular dialogue, Lynn had mentioned the jail scenes. I absolutely love that because that is the one and only script, if Michael did write that dialogue, which I'm assuming he did, most of it, is we got a glimpse of how Michael saw the other characters, particularly Adam, because that's the only script that he ever wrote that had Adam in it. And I like the fact that he wrote the brothers talking about him. I don't care if it's a Mary Sue. I still like that episode. I like it. Maybe if I was him, I would have wrote me the hero too. Why not? But the point is, in those jail scenes are my favorite because Adam and Haas are talking about their little brother and how they let him, they bought everyone around a drink so he would win the hand wrestling. And I love that because it showed me how maybe Michael would have written Pernell or how Michael's perspective of Adam was. And it was a positive scene and a positive viewpoint that those two brothers had of their little brother. And that's what I got out of that episode, the way Michael saw Adam and how he perceived the brothers, how they really felt about him. And that meant a lot to me.
You got Lynn's thumbs up on that. Ancy?
Regarding the horse scene, that's the sort of thing he should have done because he doesn't want someone, he gets on a horse beside a fella who's on a horse, that guy's going to chase after him. So chuck the fella off the horse, take his horse and go.
Easy as that.
Easy as that. You know, that's what I would have done. Mind you, I wouldn't have been able to mount a horse from the rear anyway. But that's what I thought at the time. That's a clever thing to do. Then the fella's not going to go after him.
Well, that's what's nice about all this is we can agree to disagree, and it doesn't matter. We're still all friends and family in the end.
Absolutely.
Melissa.
There is, I like the episode. I think it's season 1 or 2, The Rescue, I think, where the boys get pinned down and then Ben eventually has to go save them. There's a lot of great character banter between the three brothers, like after Haas gets shot and then Adam's tending to him. Maybe I'm fangirling a little bit, but I always loved the scene where Haas starts complaining that he can't get a good shot at one of the guys between the rocks. And Adam's like, I'll do it. And then they start quipping about how, like, oh, Adam, you're always in town. You're always like reading books or furthering your education. And they make fun of him. And he's like, no, I was actually playing billiards and I'm going to get that guy. And then he takes the gun and he shoots the guy in like one shot. I just love those like very understated, quiet moments of badassery for Adam. And I think that there are a lot of them. But that was one of my favorite scenes for him, or at least in like the early seasons.
No, that's a good one. And it's interesting that you bring that up about those kind of nice moments, because when they first brought it back in reruns, when all these networks were starting to run the show, remember how TV Land just butchered the crap out of it? And when they would butcher it, those are the moments that they would take out of the reruns, which are like, why would you take those out? Those are like the family defining, or just really great moments, but those were the ones that were always missing. So you couldn't wait to get a hold of an old copy of an episode, and because you knew that there was more to it.
Yep.
So it was really exciting, almost like Christmas, where you would watch one and it had 5 minutes of missing footage that they had butchered out of there. And it was usually those kind of moments. So
it was always the family moments that they cut out, never the guest stars. You know, because
interesting, or the long rides, or the things like that that should be obvious to just butcher out of there. They took our good moments.
So interesting that they cut them out. No, I just think I love Adam's versatility as a character. I always thought Pernell had just like fabulous range. Like he could do really sad, he could do really like dramatic, very heartfelt, very funny. And I'm just like, when I look for actors, I look for people specifically. And for some reason, I always just latched onto him because I was like, what is it about this guy? because he felt so different to me. And I just like, I think you can really see him come through in all of his performances. And I think that's just why I gravitated toward him, is because there was just so much range. And there's just something about Pernell that you're like, there's something about you that's just so interesting. I don't know what it is, but you latch on, and I just really enjoy him and his performance.
Well, I feel like there was a complexity to him too. He was one of the few that felt like there was a lot of mystery, missing moments about him that, you know, Joe obviously wore his heart on his sleeve, and we pretty much knew everything Joe was thinking and doing and saying. And then Haas, you know, was sort of, we still could see some tender moments, but Adam, I just feel like was so rich, was so many things you didn't know about him. He was just kind of that mysterious things where he obviously probably had to grow up quicker than the rest of them. So he was stuck between being Pa's buddy and kind of being a father figure to Haas, and then also being a brother to them as well. So his situation was a little more complex than the other two, it seemed like. I thought.
I just wanted to say about the cuts in the episodes. I mean, we over here in the UK had a very poor showing of Bonanza. We hardly ever saw it, but at least when we did see it, we always got the full episodes. And I can remember when I first sort of joined Bonanza online, talking about some episodes with American fans, and them saying, what do you mean that happened? And what do you mean that happened? And I couldn't believe that anybody would butcher programs like that, you know, and put them out. And I'd always been envious because you'd had it on all the time, or so it seemed to us over here. But when I found out that, I thought, well, actually, you know, well, at least when we do see them, we see all of them, you know, and I thought that was an awful thing to do, to cut out bits, because as you say, it was always the lovely family moments that they seemed to cut out. And there was so many lovely scenes that, you know, people would say to me, I've never seen that. What are you talking about? You know, and I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Well, they were easy to cut out because they didn't follow the plot. They didn't advance the plot for the most part.
Oh, yeah, I know the reasoning behind it, but it just seemed, you know, as I say, butchering something that was so perfect to just to stick another advert in. But there you go.
It wasn't just the scenes with dialogue. They would cut out the looks, the touch on the arm, or the touch, you know, where they just those things, which obviously didn't advance the plot maybe, but it was part of the family and what made them family.
Exactly.
Those were excised, and it was just disturbing to me.
It was very sad to do that, I thought.
Obviously, whoever the editor was not a girl or a Bonanza fan. Because I, as an editor, would have never done that. I'd gotten more clever about what to cut out. I would have sped up the credits, or, you know, would have found some other solution.
I wanted to continue what Melissa just said about Pernell really fast. In 1979, some of you know this, I had the wonderful opportunity that David Dortot called me at home, and I got to ask him anything I wanted to ask him. And if you know me, I probably got real mushy, which I did. And one of the things I asked him was how he chose the 4 actors. And because this is Adam Pernell's moment, I wanted to say what he said to me. He said, well, he said, he couldn't remember the show. He kept saying, was it a wagon train? Like he was talking to himself for minutes an hour. Was it a wagon train? Was it a whatever he was saying? He said, I will tell you this. He said, when I saw him, he said, the first thing I said to myself was, oh, he's not a typical blah, blah actor. And he used those words, blah, blah. He said, I thought he was mysterious. I thought he was fascinating. He says, and he was Adam to me. And I just wanted to share that he wasn't a blah, blah routine actor.
Thank you for sharing that.
A blah, blah. I like that. All right, Carol?
I would like to agree with Melissa, and she said it all very well. I am Adam fan since I first watched Bonanza, and it's a long time ago. And I think he was a very good actor. Sometimes I think he would like to speak his own lines because he learned it at stage. And I think that sometimes would be better. And I would like to say I love his deep and clear singing and speaking voice. And yes, and all the other things, more qualities he had. Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir on that one, because we all love his deep voice and his you're in good company here.
Yeah. I recorded one of his songs and I sing along with him. I love all his songs. And one of them I recorded.
Which one? Which song?
Yes. I love a quiet girl.
Oh, that is a good one.
Pardon?
Do you sing it in English or did
song.
you translate it into your language?
No, I don't translate it. I love a quiet girl. I love a gentle girl, warm as sunlight, soft, soft as snow. Her smile, a tender smile, her voice, a velvet voice, sweet as music, soft, soft as snow. When she is near me, the world's in repose. We need no words, she sees, she knows. But where is my quiet girl? Where is my gentle girl? Where is a special girl who is soft, soft as snow? Somewhere, somewhere, my quiet girl.
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was beautiful. I bet you sound great doing a duet with him when the two of you sing that. No one picked that one. Nice.
Yes, I like to sing because I sing my whole life. And so it's very nice if you like it.
No, we loved it. Thank you so much for sharing. In fact, on that note, I know we're about to wrap up here. Did anybody have any last quick comments that they wanted to make? And then we're going to roll into the Dan Blocker one. Patina, last comment from Patina.
Andy, I was wondering if you happen to know. It's interesting that Adam is the only son who went to college, and it seems unusual for a Western of that period. Why David Dortort, crafted that backstory for Adam?
Thank you, Patina. And I did notice you wrote that in the chat, and I was trying to think of how to respond. I think the answer is that David gave a great deal of thought to the background of all of his characters. And certainly he gave a great deal of thought to his casting, especially so, incidentally, to the casting of Hoss, as he had no one else in mind except Dan Blocker. And the other characters he cast later, but it was Dan Blocker when it was still an idea on the page. But I think he wanted the characters to be sharp, to be distinctive, to appeal to different segments of an audience. And he did this for a very practical reason. He was the producer of The Restless Gun, which starred John Payne. And John Payne soon discovered after production began that he would make more money on the weekends going off to do personal appearances than he would working during the week in the show. And often he would come back late Monday morning or Monday afternoon and had to hold up production because it was his show and he was in virtually every scene. So David vowed if he had the opportunity to produce another show, he would avoid that problem by having many people in the cast each capable of handling a show individually. And as I've said more than once this weekend, the public, bless them, loved all their Cartwrights all together. And so that made a problem for David, who just wanted to highlight one show. But as far as the background, Adam Cartwright, he wanted to be an intellectual, to be the second in command to Ben Cartwright. And it wasn't a stretch to think of him as highly educated. And the fact that he had an architectural degree and an engineering degree was brought out rather early. I think it was the Philip Diedesheimer story, where Philip Diedesheimer says to another character, "You must see the Ponderosa Ranch, which Adam designed and built." So I guess the best answer is David was a very imaginative, a very capable, very creative writer, and he spent a long time trying to think about these characters and what made them tick and why they ticked. So for him to make the eldest son the most intellectual, the most educated, seemed the most logical thing to do.
And the grandfather could have paid for him to go to college too, so there's always that.
Yes, that's true.
And to get to know him.
Captain Averill Morgan Stoddard must have had a treasure chest of doubloons saved from
He
his...
did. What else did he have to spend his money on but his only grandson?
There's a story idea that I'm not sure anybody's covered yet. That Abel helped pay. Yeah, that Abel helped pay for college education. Yeah, interesting.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.